Today on Twin Cedars Woodworks, we'll be building a pair of salvaged mahogany end tables with inlay. Here, you see some salvaged mahogany all laid out and ready to be milled. This mahogany was originally window frames that were pulled out of a house. After making a ridiculous amount of sawdust, I finally had it all milled and I was ready to glue up my tops. After the tops were glued up and sanded flush, it was then time to change them from a square to a circle. I accomplished this by adding a circle cutting jig to my router. Once the tops were ready to go, it was time to begin working on the legs. I began by laying out my pattern on a piece of 1/2-inch plywood. Once I was happy with the template I created, I could then begin transferring that template to the leg stock itself. I could then cut out all 6 legs using a flush trim bit on the router. And this old mahogany sure was prone to splitting out. I'll be using this inlay guide bushing on my router to do the inlays on the top of the tables. So it's over to the scroll saw to cut out a pattern. I'll have to make 2 patterns, one for each side of the pedal. After the pedals were routed out in the white oak, I then used the table saw to set them free. Each table will receive a highly figured walnut disc in the center. After the walnut discs were inlaid, I could then lay out the pedals. To mimic the stem of the pedal, I used a thin strip of walnut. I couldn't wait to see it with finish on it, so I had to use a little bit of what I call sneak peek fluid, better known as mineral spirits. In order to round out our build, we'll need to cut out a couple of circles. To avoid a short grain situation, I'll have to make my circles out of octagons. Notice that mallet sitting there? Yeah, I had to build it so that way I could baby my beater chisels with it. Just hanging out, waiting on glue to dry. Believe it or not, I actually used the circle cutting jig on my router to cut out the circles. After I was satisfied with my dry fit, I busted out the clamps. After the glue dried, it was time to apply a finish. For these tables, I'll use 3 coats of a wipe-on poly. Can you say chatoyance? Thanks for watching, everybody, and be sure to click like and subscribe. And until next time, may the sawdust always fall in your favor.